Governor Ron DeSantis has finally decided that he's going to shut down the state of Florida. You know, nobody knows why it's taken him this long. He was waiting for the federal government to tell him to, but it seems that yesterday he decided, oh, this is what I should be doing. Take a look.
Given the unique situation in Florida, I'm going to be doing an executive order today directing all Floridians to limit movements and personal interactions outside the home to only those necessary to obtain or provide essential services or conduct essential activities. I see some of these stories around the country where you kind of have, like, you know, someone steps out and like someone wants to get them arrested. Look, at some point, you know, you do need to just exercise good judgment.
And for some insane reason, there are still 11 states who are holding out. Now, what is it going to take for them to get the message, Megan? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ron DeSantis is in a particular pickle right now because he had, and we talked about this extensively on the show, spring breakers who were out partying. You saw completely filled beaches in Clearwater, Florida. Clearly, Floridians, for the most part, in many places, we're not taking this seriously. We're not sheltering in place. We're not quarantining. And now I think, unfortunately, the chickens are coming home to roost. And I think if you're Governor DeSantis right now and you waited this long, everyone's looking to see where the next epidemic is. Everyone's looking to see where the next hotspot is. And unfortunately, it's looking like it really could be Florida. I have many things to say about this. I actually watched Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota last night. I watched her press conference live because she's making the argument that because the population of South Dakota is so small, that they shouldn't be treated in the same way that New York City is. And I actually think she didn't make a bad argument that we shouldn't have a one-size-fits-all approach to extremely rural states in the country. But I think it's a tricky balance because you're talking about people's health, and at the same time, you're talking about people making decisions on their own. And we've seen so many states and so many individuals who are clearly not thinking in the right way and not making decisions based on their own health and the health of their fellow citizens.
What do you think, Joy?
About what? About DeSantis? I mean,
about people
to jump off of Megan, what she's saying is that people need to maybe make their own decisions. You know, Sweden, I was reading that Sweden actually has that policy. People are going to dinner. You see them in restaurants. They're out in the streets. I mean, they did not have a shutdown policy at all in Sweden. And I believe the numbers are going up. Somebody could check that for me. I mean, he took a risk, the president of Sweden. I mean, it seems to me that something like the example of South Korea, where they shut down the country completely, and now the numbers are going down, that seems to be the way to go. Maybe North Dakota doesn't have as many, of course, people as New York who are sick, but they could leave North Dakota. They could have the virus and move to South Dakota. Now South Dakota gets an epidemic. So I think that the president needs to shut down the whole country. Of course, he won't do that because it impacts the economy, and he knows that the economy is exactly what will get him reelected or not reelected. And so that's where he's at, because it's always about him.
So, Sonny, I want to ask you a question, because Florida is still allowing religious gatherings of no more than 10 people, but some churches, as you know, have been defiant and invited their full congregations. Is this going to become a religious liberty issue?
I think it is, and Whoopi, this
Sonny?
is something that you and I have discussed, and it's yes, can you hear me, Whoop?
Yes, I can hear you, baby. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you know, and this is something you and I have discussed. This is something that I'm discussing with a lot of my friends, because the Catholic Church is always so behind in so many things, but the Catholic Church was ahead of things by canceling all services, canceling, you know, everyone meeting together and having video services. And I'm just so surprised that so many pastors and clergy are putting their congregations at risk, because we're in a global pandemic. And so I definitely think this is going to be sort of weighing of the scales in terms of religious liberty versus public health. And I can't imagine that the religious liberty argument is actually going to win. In Texas, my understanding is that a group of pastors and a Republican activist have gotten together and have actually filed a case in front of the Texas Supreme Court to allow Texas congregations to meet. And because the Texas Supreme Court is so conservative, my sense is that this may go all the way to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has held many, many times that, the public health and especially just, not only the public health, but states can regulate, this kind of thing. So I think the religious argument is going to lose. But again, I'm just so surprised that clergymen are putting their congregants at risk. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Can I pivot off that really quickly, Sunny? I actually think that's a really interesting point, because Pope Francis has really been at the forefront of this, probably because he lives in Vatican City. And I've been very moved by some of his speeches. And I'm not Catholic, I'm Baptist, but he has been saying shelter in place, stay at home, protect one another. Did you think you could stay healthy in a sick world? I've been very moved. So I think it's strange that so many people in the Catholic Church don't seem to be taking their cues from its leader.